Texas Tech is going to hold on and beat Texas here in Chris Beard's return. The final score is 77-64, and it was never really a game that felt like it was all that close. Texas made it interesting enough that I at least had to have it on one of the TVs down the stretch. Sean, how difficult was this for Chris Beard to walk back into that building and play this game, do you think?
I'm sure it was hard. I'm sure it was hard on not only him, Rob, but his family. I think that I'm sure part of what he feels is, look, I love Texas Tech. I made the best decision for my family, but not to the detriment at all of Texas Tech. And really what I think the Texas Tech fans will come to grips with is this worked out for everybody. Mark Adams, you can make a strong argument that he's in the conversation for the national coach of the year, the Big 12 coach of the year. I mean, he's done just an amazing job. We've talked about that in the past. But, as hard as it is for Kansas to go on the road without their best player, especially after losing at home to Kentucky this weekend, that's really impressive, Arch. But, sometimes when you have this game that everybody has circled and you're the home team and you're Texas Tech, like you can let the emotion work against you and you lay an egg. And it's like you were so amped up, you were so overly excited that it actually worked against you and you did not play well in this game. You have to give Texas Tech credit. They came with that amazing energy and it was a meaningful game, but they played it the right way. They played their style. And again, like we've talked about in the Big 12, every game you play, it's like a quad one game, right? I mean, tonight, Texas Tech, they add to their resume of just quality wins, and they beat a very good Texas team.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's a good point. With all that emotion, all that energy, Texas Tech did what they do. They held Texas to 40%, 26% from three. They were +9 on the glass for the whole game. You're going to win a lot of games doing that. And that's what Texas Tech is doing right now. They're imposing their defense on you. They get enough offense from different guys on given nights. I mean, they have 4 guys in double figures tonight. I mean, it's an impressive run that they're on right now. And I wouldn't want to be going to Lubbock here in February to have my season on the line. I can tell you that. That's got to be one of the harder places to get it done right now.
I watched Texas Tech and Tennessee play earlier this year in New York City. It was an early November game. And I remember thinking that although both of these teams are really good on defense, man, are they going to be able to score enough points to win? It's one thing to be really good on defense, but you have to score a little bit too. And Texas Tech has, I think, incrementally found who they are on offense as well.
Yeah.
And it's like they can ride their defense, make that who they are. It's truly their identity. But look, guys on their team make plays. They're executing, and they've really improved since that game that I've talked about. Like you look at teams where they begin and who they are in February, Texas Tech has improved, I think, as much as any team that I've watched over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I agree with you. I watched them play Providence early in the year at the dunk, and offensively, you were questioning how are they going to score other than maybe Terrence Shannon, but right now they have a lot of different guys contributing tonight. I mean, McCullough, he shot 15 free throws in that game tonight. There's a lot of free throws in a game for an individual player. So they're getting it done a lot of different ways from different guys. And they're very impressive right now. We've talked a lot about their run, but this was a big win for them. Right now they're 6-3 or 5-3 in the Big 12?
They're 6-3 in the Big 12. And for the people just tuning in now, coming in from the Alabama-Auburn game, this is the Field of 68 After Dark. We are presented by our partners at Bet Rivers. My name is Rob Doster. I'm joined right now by Sean Miller and Archie Miller, and we are talking about Texas Tech's win over Texas. Now, one of the things, guys, that I was a little bit concerned about for the Red Raiders coming into this game is when you play at home in an environment like this and you miss a couple shots and you kind of hear the crowd groan a little bit, and you have the pressure on your fans expecting you to put together a certain kind of performance. It could almost be a little bit more difficult to play at home in this situation, Sean. So let me ask you, have you ever been in that kind of a spot? And how impressed were you with the way they kind of came out? And look, they landed the first punch and never looked back.
No, I've been in it quite a bit. McHale Center in particular, you have a whiteout playing a nationally televised game. And game of great meaning between two teams. You have to guard against being too emotional, wanting to win too bad. And really what happens when that is the case, Rob, is individual players and just your team in general deviate from what makes them good.
Yeah.
Uncharacteristically, somebody tries to make a one-on-one play, just your execution of the things that have made you a good team already, it disappears slightly because your mind is so much on the result. And I think it's just important that you keep going back to do what we do, and tonight do it well. Do your job, whatever your role is. It's not about doing any more or less than you've always done. Let's be who we are tonight. Let's make sure that our identity is in place. And, I just talked about it a minute ago. To credit Texas Tech, they did not let the emotion of the game become too big. They truly won with their defense. Arch mentioned they held Texas to 40% from the floor, 26% from three. And what did Texas Tech do? What they always do. And they did it tonight against a good opponent in a very emotional game.
Texas is a good defensive team too. They shot 30 free throws in that game. That just goes to show you right there how they're physical, they're force, they're driving the ball. And I would say that energy level in that game, can take the gas out of you early. You've seen it 1,000 times where, like, first 4 minutes, 5 minutes of the game, your entire team's out of gas. Like they were, they just, they ran out of juice. But Texas Tech, they got a chance to win the Big 12. I mean, legitimately, they have a chance to win the Big 12 regular season right now. They're at 6-3, and Baylor and Kansas are ahead of them. But there's probably halfway to point right now. They're one game back. Texas Tech can win the Big 12.
Whoever wins the Big 12 this year, whoever wins the Big 12 this year, they should get to sit out their conference tournament. Whoever wins the regular season, they should say, we want you to have the freshest legs. Don't get anybody hurt. You've done something already that no one else can say they've done. You've won in the regular season championship in a conference year where it may be historically one of the all-time best conferences. So don't get beat up in a conference tournament. You're a 1 seed. It's a wrap. I mean, that's so difficult
Kansas,
of a conference.
Now, Kansas and Baylor are 1 seeds, and we're saying Texas Tech could win the league. Could they get?
I'm really saying it. You get into that conference tournament if you're the Big 12 champ. In my mind, the only thing that can happen is an injury, or you just unnecessarily take some gas out of your sail. I mean, winning 6 games in a row is hard enough. Really, maybe that's something that we can talk to the Big 12 commissioner about. You win the regular season championship, automatic bye to the NCAA tournament.
Right. So let me ask you guys this. I made the argument last night that the Big 12 may not actually have an elite team. And I don't know if it's just because you can kind of poke holes in all of the teams that are in the top 10. There's just no one that is perfect, so to speak, in college basketball. But I do wonder if there are enough concerns with Baylor and with the point guard issues at Kansas and the inconsistency of Dave McCormick to kind of say, like, look, part of what makes the Big 10 or the Big 12 great is that everybody is really good. But do you think Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, can those teams win national titles, Arch?
Baylor healthy can. I think you're seeing Baylor here the last 3.5 weeks with somebody out. Somebody's out here. 2 guys are out there. They haven't had their full arsenal of guys in maybe a month. I mean, Sokan's been out. He gets back. Then they lose Akinjo, who's playing great. And then last night they have Cryer and Flagler out of the game. And that just hopefully will make them stronger as it goes. But if Baylor is healthy, full go with all their troops, they can win the national championship. And I'm sure make the case right now that, a couple other teams can probably do it as well. Can Kansas win it? I'm sure they can if they're clicking on all cylinders. But Baylor's the most gifted team, the best team if they're healthy.
Yeah, and I keep going back to Kansas. I think they're overachieving. I think that's kind of what you're hinting at, Rob. They've had more talented rosters. I mean, they don't have a single high school All-American right now on their roster. That doesn't always mean everything. I understand that. But when you look over the last decade or 15 years at Kansas, where would this team's talent level rank? they're getting the most out of their team. And that's what a great coach like Bill Self does. But right now, there's so much parity in college basketball, Rob. There's 20 different teams that can make a run and compete for a Final Four in a national championship, if not more. The eligible immediate transfer that you not only can go from one school to the next, but you're eligible right away. I mean, it's changed the dynamic, and I don't think it's till this year's NCAA tournament begins that you really see that play out. That sometimes those early rounds, which they always featured upsets, my prediction is this year there'll be more than ever before, just because the experience is so important. And we talked a little bit earlier about Kentucky, that what's different about their team? Why does it feel like these guys are special? I think it's not only their group, but it's the experience and the age of a guy like Grady and Wheeler and Oscar. Those guys aren't high school seniors a year ago. They're older and more experienced. And I think the Big 12, they have a number of teams. If you can go wire to wire and win the Big 12 regular season championship, of course you can compete for the national championship.
I think that's probably Duke's. I know everybody picks at Duke, but Duke's biggest disadvantage or knock on them isn't really their players or talent, it's their age. Of all of the teams that we discuss, like they showed that graphic on TV tonight with Texas and Texas Tech, 10 players on those two teams are 22 or 23 years old. I would be shocked if Duke has a guy, maybe they have one 22-year-old, but Duke is the youngest team that's trying to compete to win a national championship legitimately right now. In terms
to your point, Arch, Joey Baker is one of the seniors on the roster. I think he's the 4-year guy that they have that plays, and
he came early too.
Yeah, he was an early enrollee, so he's not even like a real senior in college,
right? But like they're by far and away young. And to your point on Kansas, though, I think the Kentucky game showed you right there from a talent perspective, they can be overwhelmed. Yeah. They can be overwhelmed. Be honest with you, I said this to you, I think you guys after the game, Kentucky made Kansas look small. They made them feel, it made Kansas look like a smaller, littler team. You know what I mean? I think that was very evident in terms of like Kansas's talent versus even Kentucky's.
All right, we got about a minute before we got to get to a break here, but I do want to ask you guys one thing really quick about Texas Tech and Mark Adams taking over that program. How it's the continuity factor, I think, that makes a lot of sense to me. What I mean by that is you have a guy coming in that understands what the culture is in that program. And I do believe, Sean, you kind of hinted at this earlier, the culture at Texas Tech, I think is so important to the reason why they're able to succeed, because that style of play, that kind of blue collar, rugged, we're going to win the fight. Hopefully we win the game too. That ethos and identity fits so perfectly in Lubbock, and it fits so perfectly with Mark Adams as a basketball coach.
Yeah. So Rob, I would answer your question this way. It's what Chris Beard right now is going through at Texas as he's taken a different personality and a different style. In fairness to Chris Beard and his staff, they're good right now, but they'll become great, I believe. You never can quite get that done in the first 6 to 9 months. You're so much at the mercy of what happened a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago in that program, or how many returners you have from that. And I think what Mark Adams in Texas Tech has really taken advantage of is he was there. And when they went to the national championship, he watched their defense, almost win it all. I mean, almost win the national championship. And he's been in the Big 12 playing on the road. He knows the styles of the coaches and the different venues. And, sometimes the trip, how it feels, where you stay, how difficult of a trip it is. Those things are already in place at Texas Tech, and you can feel it. But I think that all coaches that are in their first year, to some degree, they're at the mercy of who the coach was there before and like how it felt the last 2, 3, 4 years prior to them taking over. And again, Chris Beard should feel really good about that as well, as crazy as that sounds, because he had a lot to do with building the culture at Texas Tech that now Mark Adams is continuing.